Welcome to Detective Diaries, brought to you by private detectives and search investigation. If you are captivated by the art of deduction, the thrill of solving the unsolvable, or the enigmatic world of private investigation, you have just found your new favorite podcast. Detective Diaries are where secrets are unraveled and the truth is always a clue away. Presented by Private Detective and Search Investigation, each episode contains offbeat conversations about the real people involved in investigation. Enjoy.
I'm working in Nice this week, south coast of France. Not an unfamiliar territory. We do a lot of work in France, various places around. I'll get into a few stories later on because I can't actually talk about what I'm doing here at the moment, confidentiality of course. But there can be a number of reasons. Process serving is very common, servicing of documents applied for in UK courts, finding people, tracking them down in France and serving them, whether it be a property or a business. Tracing people, finding adopted parents, finding adopted children who again have gone abroad. And then you get into the other exercises, surveillance, working out corporate entities which perhaps have moved away from their UK base into other countries. Now this all may sound romantic, but obviously there's quite a lot involved with these kind of operations. You've got the travel, you've got the equipment, you've got the gear, and then you've got living with my colleague in an Airbnb for a few days. That can be a little bit troublesome.
Thanks for that. Well, I may cause the chaos, and as we both know, having worked together for years, it's generally you who clears it up. But in my own defence, it is me who always goes out and plans it, works it out, works out logistics, gets us here, and makes the whole job work. I don't think in a single time that we have ever worked abroad, we have not succeeded in what we're doing.
It's true. It may seem in the movies quite a slick operation when people go abroad, but actually there's quite a lot of planning. And I know sometimes a lot of stress that goes into planning these sorts of operations. But yeah, hopefully today we're going to talk about quite a few things that we've done. Certainly a few exercises, different cases, some routine and some not so routine. So yeah, let's share some stories.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do remember that. You talk about things being planned and going wrong. I mean, hell, I can remember sitting on a plane from an airline that I won't mention that starts with W for 5 hours on a tarmac, desperately wanting to be out in Bucharest. I know that's not France. Yeah, we did get there. And yes, we sorted it out, even though, thank you, airlines starting with W that we won't mention, that really, really put the kibosh, or nearly put the kibosh on the whole damn thing.
Now, don't get sidetracked. We're talking about France here. Come on, I know you've done plenty of work here. Tell us a bit.
I really can't count the number of times. I don't know, 20, 25. Mm-hmm. Paris, Nice, little town on the west coast of France, which I'm not supposed to talk about. All over the place, Saint. I love France. I really do. I love being here. I love working here. I like the chances that get free time. I mean, today, a little bit of off time because it's Saturday, and a big shout out to my old friends Danielle and Sam who live here, and we managed to meet up. Had a fantastic afternoon. And that's the things that uplift some of the hard work that we end up putting in. And let's face it, you get up at, I don't know, what time was it on Thursday? I think I got up at 4. I mean, you turned up at my place about 5, get to the airport to get out, get through the airport, get the tram, get settled and think, oh, great, fine, we've got to go to work now. Yeah. I mean, that's the average first working day abroad. Let's face it, time and time again. But anyway, sorry, you wanted to talk about France. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I think the starting point would actually look at the kind of routine aspects. I mean, as I say before, we've talked about tracing. We've done some episodes on things like surveillance, but what an interesting story, I think, is the whole adoption aspect. Now, a lot of people obviously are based in the UK, but when they're adopted or trying to find family members who they haven't met or known for decades and decades, they've gone abroad and we've got to track them down. And sometimes that brings us to very common cities, Paris and so forth, but sometimes it's the unheard of locations. as I say, we're working in Nice at the moment, but there's certainly been some West Coast and South Coast of France where we've been to, and some unheard of towns and cities tracking these people down.
Yeah, well, I know what you mean. There's people who ever do listen to us know I do a lot of the company's tracing work, and so often that trail will start in the UK. The client's got no real idea where somebody is, especially if there's a biological mother, and that might go back 30, 40, 50 years even. And then the trail goes dry. Because you get up to a point, I don't know, the year 2000, 2010, and all trace of them has disappeared. You don't know the current address. Do a bit more research and just perhaps get a whiff that they have gone somewhere abroad. Very often, the next country along the line, just across the channel, which happens to be France, often the place where people go out to retire or they work here as expats. Next question is, where are they? Again, data research, tracing in France, getting an address, which you can't absolutely be certain of. So the only way to go and firm it up is to physically be there.
And I think that the physically be there is important here, because unlike the UK, obviously, you can go and doorstep, you can have your resources, but there's a whole new language that we're dealing with here, right? You're going to doorsteps, or you're potentially going to registry offices where, I know you speak very good French. My French is pretty awful. I would find it very difficult to, interact with these people and get the information that's needed.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not fluent, but it's the same as if you go anywhere and you immerse yourself, and then suddenly one stops trying to translate in your head, and any linguist will be able to tell you this. You stop translating in your head and you actually start talking. And somehow the responses come, the questions come in the same way as if you talk in your own natural first language. It can be really, really quite difficult when maybe you're doorstepping or you don't know exactly where somebody lives. A lot of French localities are small, and whereas you might know that they live in X small commune somewhere, you don't know exactly where the address is. So the only way to go and find them is go bang, bang, bang. Sorry, not knocking on words. There we go. Wait until somebody else opens the door and say, do you know this person? Do you know where they are? That's led us so often to that exact house and given us a chance to talk to somebody, which of course is the next hurdle, because it's all got to be done incredibly discreetly, because you might be dropping some phenomenal news on somebody that is from their old and past life, especially if perhaps it's a child who was adopted.
Because that is going to be the most new pieces of information that, again, decades and decades of not knowing the situation, not knowing that they did have a child back home in the UK. And so you're so right. I think a lot of the times it's breaking down those initial barriers of language and nuances, mannerisms and so forth, but then getting to the crux of the information. I mean, I remember a particular time when we went to a registry office, and again, this was sort of south coast of France.
West Coast.
Yeah, West Coast, sorry. And we were trying to get into this particular registry office to obtain information about property, because, of course, the person had moved away. And so getting that specific bit of information took its time, but we got there eventually with a bit of translation, a bit of writing down, I think, as well.
Well, it did. It took a lot of working, because the first response was the absolute slam door of GDPR. I can't tell you, it's more my job's worth, etc., etc. Get talking to somebody, get somebody on the wrong side, and maybe they will hopefully steer you in the right direction. Not illegal, it's just conversation and getting information from somebody who probably, if you can get them on side, will want to help you, because they can see the real reason for doing something, that it's a good purpose. And most of the thing that I've found in life is that people want to help.
Absolutely. And they might not initially understand, but once you explain it to them and, provide the reasons, and of course we provide the authority as well. We have the evidence from the clients stating our reasons and what we're doing. We get it across to them. And 9 times out of 10, it is a case of, brilliant. We find this person, we go and have that conversation, bring them the good news, mediate, make sure that obviously all parties are happy, and then bring these two people together who, again, they have not seen each other in years and years.
Yeah, but hey, right, okay. Can I just take you back to before you started recording, when you said to me, don't keep interrupting me when I'm speaking, and also stop digressing. What we've actually managed to do is digress completely. Okay, yeah, right. I work in France an awful lot. Often it is things that probably aren't too interesting to a lot of the listeners. It is finding somebody, it is tracing his adoption. We can talk about that maybe a little bit later. All that dire news of serving them with legal papers, which is never going to be good news. But you've got involved in some fantastic cases in France. Why don't you talk?
Sure. So a case comes to mind which brought us to a coastal town in France. We had to track down an individual who they'd actually come from the Caribbean to France. It was all about historical sexual abuse claims that a family had brought against this individual. They were involved with the family many years ago. Now, we thought it was history, but of course these things do resurface. So we'd backtracked all of the data, obtained all of the interviews, and we had to go and find this individual. So as I say, it brought us to this coastal town. Obviously, with these types of areas, there's not many people around, so you have to be a bit careful how you operate. Obviously, if you are seen to be a regular, then again, you might find your identity to be questioned, but of course you have to be discreet. And so we operated in the town. We were finding the individual, bit of surveillance, bit of vehicle tracking, and eventually managed to find out where she was.
I remember that because the first time anybody came out here, it was just Dina and I, and she's got sort of loads of experience, but she has a wonderful advantage in that she's very young looking, which became quite salient because the individual concern that we were looking at actually worked in a school, which is not great given what Harry just slipped out about a few minutes ago. And it was quite easy for Dina to actually just be at school gates. She didn't look out of place and wonderfully ingratiated herself, especially the fact that she has a non-English accent, which helps in the whole thing. Having tracked her, having kept tabs on her, firmed up exactly where she lived, that whole reconnaissance over a few days really set the scene for what we were able to do subsequently.
I should also add at this point as well, it's, as I say, it sounds simple. We track her, we find her, we go to the exact location. With a unique surname in this instance, there are other family members to consider. We have to make sure that we're finding the correct individual.
Oh, that's what I remember. Went up to San Nazaire and tracked that individual down. Joan Becker and I were talking to him on his flat door, and
we've done some residential knocking. As I say, it was making sure that we had the right individual because, of course, yes, you can get commonality. We've been over the fact that you get the John Smiths when you're looking at French surnames, or sometimes, as I say, from the Caribbean side, you can get similarities. So we need to make sure that we find the right person, but also B, their relatives and family members if it's
loads and loads of dead ends that had to be explored to eliminate them.
Exactly. It is that process of elimination, isn't it? So once we get to the end, obviously we find the individual, and now it's understanding routine. One might think if you are going to look at an historical abuse claim that you're simply just going to land everything on the doorstep. No, it's not as simple as that. You need to understand someone. You need to understand their routines, how they act, what they're doing, whether or not the behaviour is being represented now. Of course, as we just explored, this person was working in a school. And given those claims, that has obviously raised quite a few eyebrows at the time. This isn't simply obtained in one trip. It was probably about 2 or 3 before we had the entirety, or at least most of what we needed to go back, formulate those case points, take down the witness statements from the victims, obtain all of the substantive information so that, again, it can be translated into French, which is obviously an important aspect here. And once we've obtained all of these details, the time was to go back and visit her. Of course, this is where the trouble came, because the client took a little bit of time to decide on the final manoeuvre. By this point, the subject had moved.
It took about half a day to work out that her house was empty. And then tracking her down again was not the easiest thing. But I think, hang on, if I remember this rightly, we'd had track of a vehicle.
Yes.
And it's not a big place, and when we were spotting and seeing her vehicle happened to drive past it when we were just having a look around and driving around and trying to sort of get a feel of the whole thing, stuck on the vehicle, and the vehicle led her to where she was living. Have I remembered that right?
No, exactly, because the data, because the move was recent, the data wasn't available. We had to go and physically look at this, and all we had at that point in time, obviously we know what she looks like, we had the old address, but we had the car. So we had a good mooch around, we found the vehicle, and that tracked us down to the property once we observed the surrounding area. I should stress here, we're not talking about days, weeks, months. This is years worth of case evidence, all culminating in the objective of talking to the subject, laying bare the witness statements and claims made against them. Now, that's a bit of a tricky thing, isn't it, when you've got to go and land all of this on someone's doorstep?
No, absolutely, yeah. I mean, nobody was trying to persecute her. I think the main objective, or the initial objective, was to see what her reaction was when she was presented with the evidence, largely in the form of those witness statements from the alleged, and I have to stress the word alleged, victims of what had happened 20 years beforehand. We tried to find her when she was out of the house. You know, she did sort of routine visits into work, which we didn't want to intervene on because there was a duty of care to an individual. You know, her other habitual, what's a good word, isn't it? Habitual habits were to visit a local tobacco and to buy lottery tickets in a local bar cafe. But unfortunately, those opportunities didn't present itself. So at the end of the day, myself with a female colleague, which we thought would take the edge off things, simply got into an apartment block and knocked at a door.
What happened then?
She slammed the door.
Right.
Literally, she slammed the door. I can't say this positively, she knew. She probably knew for years that it was coming.
Almost waiting in the back line thinking, have I got away with this because it's so long ago? And now it all comes to a head on the doorstep.
I so often wonder how many years these things sit, or such things sit at the back of people's minds. You know, I know when we track down somebody's biological mother, and I know this is moving subjects, so many times the reaction, which is 9 times out of 10 completely favourable, but is that reaction of, one day I knew this day would come. And when you have a perpetrator, I am sure the same happens. One day, this day is going to come.
Yes, and there's no avoiding it. You know, we eventually find them, we will get to them. How would you say this differs then? Because of course you've done a lot of work like this in the UK to being on foreign soil and in an unnatural environment.
That's a good question. Of course, it's different being somewhere else, being not in the UK, which is where I was born and where I'm familiar. But then again, I know France, I know Spain, I know Italy, I know Morocco, and I've got an idea of how to feel immersed in the whole environment. Where something is happening, I mean, not necessarily this sort of subject, but others, but where something is happening in other parts of the world, massive thing that helps is our makeup of people. You know, we've got Dina, she speaks Romanian, she speaks Italian, she speaks English, we've got a Spanish speaker, we've got Daria joining us very shortly, who speaks fluent Russian. Having people around who've got access to that familiarity can really make things an awful lot easier.
I would say this is what makes us differ from the norm. We have these people who can blend into different environments, multiple languages, you know, making sure that people have the familiarity when actually they're dealing with something which may be unfamiliar to them. This even applies to other aspects of our work. We take a lot of fingerprints abroad, particularly in France, for corporations and individuals alike. And having that familiarity of someone who can speak your language when taking fingerprints is quite crucial, because they've got to understand the process, how it works. And so for businesses and, as I say, individuals alike, a lot of the times it's making sure that their needs are met. We're flying directly to them, attending their offices, conducting the prints there and then. They don't have to go to a police station. They don't have to fly into the UK. We come straight to them.
So where's that taken you in France? Let's come back to France. We're supposed to be talking about France, not the rest of Europe.
Very true. So where's it taken us? Paris, Toulouse, Monaco, Nice, where we are today, in fact.
So this is for gaming companies who need licenses in the USA, for banking corporations. Have I got that right? Okay. And I mean, why else? Just even somebody who needs to get a USA police clearance or Canadian police clearance or whatever it is.
Exactly. While the needs may vary, as I say, a lot of corporations, whether it be gambling licenses, liquor licenses, wealth management companies for their applications when people are obviously working with the United States, And then the private clients, a lot of the times it's police clearances, United States, South Africa, Thailand, Singapore, all the countries that they've visited, worked in and lived for some significant amount of time. And a lot of these countries, as I say, obviously we're talking about France here, but it does apply elsewhere. There is no provision to do this. There isn't really much of a provision in the UK either. But you'll find that these clients are simply stuck where they are. They obviously can't travel. Sometimes they may have relatives who are a bit older. I do remember a particular private client where one of their family members required a clearance and they were too old to travel. So we, of course, went directly to them. But that's all well and interesting. I think it deserves another episode talking about the process serving and the fingerprinting, as we say, in France and other European countries. But come on, I know you've got plenty more dramatic stories. How about the last one before we go?
Oh, what, Paris? Yeah, no, not great. Supplier, client of ours, supplied loads of goods to a company in Paris that all seemed very pucker and proper at the outset. But of course, they never actually got paid. Got us involved to go and find out what was going on. I mean, we watched it for 2-3 days, and that was quite enlightening. It was, if anybody thinks Paris is romantic, try getting into some areas of it that I won't mention. It's not a pleasant environment and not a pleasant way to spend a few days. It was only about the second day that we realised, because we don't think they were there on the first, that probably the car at the road was local Sûreté Nationale, who also seemed to be observing what was going on, and we realised that we had probably just dropped into the middle of a police investigation. Not surprising, because the movements that we'd seen were very suggestive of something that was symptomatic to the movement of certain substances, which I'm sure are not deemed as illegal in most countries. Having walked into a police operation unwittingly, of course we backed out of the whole thing. Did contact them, spoke to them, told them what we knew, what we were about, and promised that we would back off and go away. Good part of it, while our client did not get their money paid for them, they did get their goods back, which at least was some compensation and meant that they did not have a total and utter loss. Trust me, being in that situation is not something which I really want to go through every day of the week.
Yeah. It's a bit of a demonstration, though, I would say, in the sense of we get the case, and then once exploring the details of it, it opens up into something massive and quite large. And as you say, you've got to get the authorities involved when it gets to that stage.
Yeah, they were very good. They were incredibly cooperative and, in fact, actually quite grateful. But they did keep saying, please, can you not be involved in this? And it was just saying, yeah, that's absolutely fine by us. It's your bag. You go and do it.
Leave it to them. Well, I think that's kind of all we've got time for at the moment.
Oh, why? I want to talk about serving legal papers in Paris. I want to talk about serving legal papers in so many different parts of France. I want to talk about finding people's mothers in Sens, in Sens, and all the other places, in Corsica. We're out of time, is it?
We're going to have to save it for another episode, my friend, unfortunately.
Well, it's your fault. You talk too much.
What, me? Talk too much?
Oh, stuff that. I want to go and cause some chaos. Do you want to sign this off, Harry?
Well, looks like I'm on clean-up duty. Well, come back and explore our second episode on French investigations. We'll talk a little bit more about the process serving, fingerprinting, and more cases that we've handled in France.
Get involved. Detective Diaries is interactive, which involves you, the listener. Do you have a case you'd like discussed? A burning question about investigative life? Send an email to podcast@private-detectives.co.uk or reach out via social media. You may hear your story featured in an upcoming episode. Don't forget to leave your contact details. The email address is in the show notes.
Hi, I'm Professor Emma Short, cyber psychologist at London Metropolitan University. So come and listen to me talk on Detective Diaries. We had an incredible hour talking about the online environment, how it may enable crime when watching crosses the line and perhaps becomes snooping, and also what happens when the crowd takes control of an investigation.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast, brought to you by Answers Investigation and UK Fingerprint. If you've enjoyed our conversation and want to learn more about the fascinating world of investigations, be sure to check out Private Detectives Answers Investigation. Their experienced team offers a wide range of discreet and professional services, helping you find the answers you need with integrity and expertise. If you're interested in fingerprint analysis or require specialist fingerprint services, don't miss UK Fingerprint. As one of the leading fingerprint companies in the UK, they provide everything from identification to background checks, working with individuals, businesses, financial institutions, and gambling companies. To find out more, visit www.private-detectives.co.uk, that's a minus sign, and www.ukfingerprint.co.uk. These are your go-to resources for investigative solutions and fingerprint expertise. You can call their office on 020 7158 0332. Thanks once again for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking the truth.